right, I will call to order this regular meeting of council number 1549 for November 2nd. And in honor of the Leewat-Tool, the village of Pemberton acknowledges that we are meeting and working within the unceded territory of the Leewat Nation. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, can I get a motion to the agenda as presented?
Move as presented.
Councillor Zan, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Advisory report from in camera. Nothing. Adoption of minutes from regular council meeting 1547 and regular council or in special council meeting 1548. Moved by Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Any business arising from the previous council meeting? None. Business arising from the committee of the whole. We have one recommendation from the committee of the whole meeting number 219 from Tuesday, October 19th. It's regarding the BC Social Procurement Initiative. Procurement Initiative is that the committee of the whole recommends to council that staff be directed to enroll the village with the British Columbia Social Procurement Initiative. I get a motion to that effect. Second by Councillor Antonelli. Any discussion? Go ahead, Councillor Antonelli.
No discussion, just seconding.
Oh, thank you. Any discussion? Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Committee minutes, none. Delegations, none. Staff reports. We're going to go for number 12, staff reports, Office of the CAO verbal report.
Thank you. I have two updates this evening that I wanted to bring to council's attention. One, there's been a little bit of conversation happening in the general public just as to the status of the lights at the soccer field. So I just wanted to let council and I guess the public know that right now we're finalizing our right of way with BC Hydro. And so until that's completed, we can't get the lights actually hooked up. And so we expect when they're back on the field in the spring that we should have that all resolved. I believe this is the last week of Pemberton Youth Soccer to be on the fields. The other thing that I wanted to note is we won't be able to use the second soccer field. It could be as early as June, but we're probably expecting September next year. We just need the routes to establish. Same cycle we had for the first field. And also that we were able to accommodate lighting the first field, which we didn't think we were going to be able to do. So it is a bonus. And so there was no necessary commitment to being able to have the lights on at a certain time. And it just needs to follow in suit with the project. So I just wanted council to have that update.
Thank you. So that's good.
If you don't mind, just one question. How are the lights going to be operated?
There's a very technical switch. And so it can be programmable. We wouldn't obviously let anyone program it. We would make sure that it's programmed for when the field is in use. And we'll right now we need to do that for a few other amenities for establishing a timeline. Pardon, is there a member of the public?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I missed the last bit. It was the timer.
Oh, yeah, and so we would like to also establish, maybe it's 10 o'clock. It's not, right now, our noise bylaw allows for 11 o'clock use, but we haven't really discussed what it's going to look like at the rec site or any other amenities we have that will have lighting to, we need to have a conversation about that. So we'll bring that back.
Okay. Any questions? Any motion received, please. Councillor Noble, second by Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks for that. There are another number of questions. People are anxious. And again, the lights on the first field is such a great bonus.
Yep. I do have one more update.
Go ahead.
So we received a call last week. So we had assumed when we made our application for childcare spaces in 2020 that they were going to hold our application and forward it along to the Treasury Board. for approval, and we've been advised that that is not the case, and we will now need to submit a brand new application.
Oh, geez.
And we have until November 16th to get a brand new application with amended costs. So staff have quickly mobilized. Staff at the province got that on short notice. They were advised that an hour before they called me. And so she said that they would be very willing to help us with the application, given we had about 2 weeks in order to get that in. So we've already started mobilizing and coordinating with the province, with the daycare, and updating our cost estimates. The application form doesn't look that much harder or different than the last one we did. There's just a few areas we need to expand on. So we do not need to come back for another council resolution. So we're just gonna, because that was my concern, want to make sure we met those timelines. If they do, we can submit it after the fact. So we're mobilizing to get that all done as soon as possible.
To what end? Our cost changes are only going to be increases. They're not
Well, they will be,
decreases.
well, and part of the issue is they understand that with the delays and with the impacts to COVID, that there is undoubtedly going to be cost implications. And they said that if we were to provide, it will get through to another level should justification be provided as to why we can't meet those thresholds, which is $40,000 per space, per child per space. And we've already have rationale to that effect, and we will expand on that if necessary and make the application. Yes. So it wasn't necessarily the news I thought we were going to get when I was asked to have a quick phone call. But nonetheless, we've already taken action to get things updated and get the application in.
I think we should, when we get the new application in, we should follow up with a letter once again to Minister Chen and say we've done as asked, and again, and as per our last phone call, you were on that call. Hopeful signs on that call. I'm hoping that this application, reapplication, is because it's going to get forward to the top of the heap something, but I want to follow up on with her and we can talk about it a little bit more, but follow-up letter to the minister.
Okay.
Um,
You're good if we just get the application in and then we.
Yes, let's get the
Okay,
application, that's priority for sure, but once it's in and sent, I want to send a correspondence to Minister Chen saying, once again, for the third year in a row, we've applied for the grant. We were hopeful after our last conversation that there was some more forward movement afoot. Hopefully this is a sign of that and not a step backwards. It's basically, I mean, I don't, yeah.
I want to be positive, but also be direct.
Used to that.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, so you don't need a motion, just a motion received.
Yes.
Councilor Zant, seconded by Councilor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we're on to 12B, corporate legislative services. This is regarding 2022 committee liaison appointments.
Okay, I'll take this one. So this time every year, it's actually a little bit later typically, but staff are able to put some attention on getting this report put together so that we can inform all of, mostly it's the SLRD library as well, but SLRD has needs all the member municipality schedules before they can determine their board calendar. So we'll bring forward all the appointments. So there are several that need to actually be confirmed. There's additional information in here as well on select committees and standing committees that actually don't apply. So I won't touch on that during this presentation, but the first thing that we need to decide, of course, is the acting mayor. Some of the information staff has put forward is the timelines and who was appointed this year. And you'll see that for December to February, Councillor Antonelli was appointed. March to May was Councillor Craddock, June to August, Councillor Zant, September to November was Councillor Noble. A couple other committees, the parcel tax roll review panel. So this isn't a panel that we typically have every year necessarily. It's when we have a change or an expansion.
We're going to take them off one at a time with motions, the easy ones
Sure.
to get rid of them, just so that
We can
don't
do
have
that.
to circle back. 'Cause I think that the acting mayor schedule is fairly basic. Is everybody okay with the acting mayor schedule?
Yep.
I get a motion to that effect. Moved by Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Discussion, opposed, motion carries.
Right, great, thank you. Okay, I have that even on here. Yep, okay, the next one, as I was mentioning, is the parcel tax roll review panel. Requires three members of council to be appointed. We didn't actually meet in 2020. It's only if there's, say, a new property comes into the village of Pemberton, which we didn't have frontage or a parcel tax appointed to, then we need to bring that forward to be authenticated. So in 2021, councillors Antonelli, Noble, and Zant were appointed. So we also need to make another.
Is everybody good to, we didn't meet in 2021, everybody good for that, or 2020?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Like to move it?
Yep.
Moved by Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Craddock. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. Do we have here? So the next committee we have is our Emergency Planning and Operations Committee. It's more of a council committee to deal with emergency planning measures. So this year, I don't believe we've really met, but we have sort of a spin-off of this emergency meeting, which is to deal with the mapping, emergency mapping, and Councillor Noble is actually a representative on that branch off committee. And typically during these meetings, we would look at our emergency management plan, which we've been wanting to bring forward for some time. We just finished our tabletop exercise, and so the plan would be to, in 2022, bring forward that plan. So there is some activity that we would like to resume for 2022. So at this point, there are staff representatives as well, the CAO, emergency program coordinator, and relative department heads who need to attend for certain meetings will take part in that. So Councillor Noble, again, is the appointed council member, and there is no alternate assigned at this point, which would probably make sense to have an alternate appointed.
Okay. So first off, Councillor Noble, would you like to continue with this appointment, or somebody else really hungry for it? Councillor Noble, you good? Okay. Is anybody interested in being the alternate?
When do we meet?
Pardon me?
How often?
Sporadically, like we haven't had any in the last 2 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll go.
Okay,
I can
so
make,
we're gonna have 7 next year? No, I'm just kidding.
well, there you go, Councillor Zan, you're in.
Yeah, I don't mind being the alternate.
Okay,
Okay, so a motion for Councillor Noble to remain the appointee and Councillor Zant as the alternate for the Emergency Planning Operations Committee, moved by Councillor Craddock, seconded by Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then the working committees.
working committees. We don't have any working committees that require participation of council at this time. Community committees, so we do have one, and that is the cemetery committee. And Councillor Zant is the current village appointment, and Councillor Antonelli is the alternate. And a few times a month, I know it was quite busy because not even.
After they finished their the big cemetery project, there's just been the odd email that goes back and forth about updates. So we haven't had a meeting since COVID started. Not an in-person meeting since COVID started. So
Right.
it's very slow. They probably can't see them having another meeting unless they decide to come to Beavis. But yeah, so yeah, we haven't had a meeting in a long time.
So would you like to stick with that?
I'll stay with the cemetery committee.
Okay, motion to that effect, please.
And the alternate, Councillor Antonelli, is
Councillor Antonelli, are you good to remain the alternate on that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, moved by Councillor Antonelli, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries. Joint committees.
we have joint committees we haven't typically appointed. They were just representatives made up of the terms of reference. So this is just for council's information as far as the Newfoundland Intergovernmental Relations Committee. So the mayor, CAO, and it will no longer be the senior community partnerships and communication coordinator. It will be our project manager who sits on that one once that position has been filled. All of council is included and invited as part of the larger not the intergovernmental, but the annual gathering. And that would remain the same. So I don't require any appointments on that one. So Pembina Valley Emergency Management Committee, this is joint group, again, with the village, SLRD, Permanent Valley Dyken District and the Lot Nation. And again, there are terms of reference for this particular committee, and it's made up of the mayor, CAO, and emergency program coordinator. So no appointments required. The Village Regional Economic Development Collaborative. At this point, Councillor Craddock is the representative, along with the CAO and soon to be, it would be project coordinator. And so I would, although I don't have a real status update, I know we haven't met in a while. Hopefully we'll be able to reinvigorate that and continue with some of the action planning.
We've had a discussion about that.
Yeah.
And getting people back to the table has become a bit of an issue.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're working through it, but at this time I've asked about a meeting, but I would suggest it'll probably into the new year.
Yeah, I agree. And I, I think it would be appropriate to just reconfirm your appointment on that, if that's somewhere you wanted to continue to stay.
Mhm.
I think that would be appropriate. So we can,
Okay, well, all of these joint committees, unless somebody's stepping down, we don't need a resolution.
so the next
So
one
I
was,
said we're all
Yeah.
status quo.
okay, board appointments, SLRD. So it's not only for the Squamish Lillooet Regional District Board, but typically the appointment to that board follows that the representatives or appointees will also take part and be on the Permanent Valley Utilities and Services Committee, the Sea to Sky Regional Hospital District, and the Permanent Lillooet Treaty Advisory Committee. And the representatives have been Mayor Richmond and Councillor Zant as either for the Permanent Valley Utilities and Service Committee as the other appointee, but also the alternate under all of those. Other.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
If you're interested in staying.
Let's change it up a notch.
Yeah.
So moved by Councillor Craddock
Second.
to maintain the village appointments. Second by Councillor Zant. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries.
I'm gonna cut up there. The next
That
one,
that covers PLTAC, right?
yeah, I added, sorry, that was a resolution for the SLRD board, permanent PVIS, KLTAC and Sea to Sky Hospital District Board.
Okay.
And the next one will be the library, Permanent District Library Board. Typically, they have monthly meetings at around 7 p.m., except for July and August. And so the representatives at this point have been Councillor Zant with Councillor Noble as the alternate.
You guys happy to stay the course?
Happy to stay on the board, yeah.
That's nobody good? Okay. Motion to that effect, moved by Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Open community forums.
This is again made up of the, I guess, documents that created the board. So I will not require any appointments for this. What I should mention is that we do have an interim board at this time. And once we get through the governance documents on that board, we will be going out to have the official establishment of the final board, which is representative of the mayor and the chief, and then 2 community members from each community. And that will be posted to get the public to submit applications on that one.
Just a question on that, and through the mayor also. Is it reasonable to always put the mayor in those positions, or it should be a member of council that has interest or experience in it? And I'm just asking the
Yeah.
question because I don't think we ever discussed that, and I just want to bring it up.
Yeah.
We may get new people at the table or new people at the head here that may just decide, no, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious about how it became just the mayor.
I believe we wrote that into the documents.
I don't remember that, and I couldn't find my document. So if
Yeah.
that's the case, that's fine. I
But
just,
that could always be revisited by a future board if they wanted to open that up for discussion to see if maybe it wasn't just the mayor and chief, and it could be other representatives of council.
sounds good.
Yeah, and so like CEO said, that the interim board will work on the governance issues as well as the makeup of the new board. So
Great.
that's the two.
Super. I just thank you for answering that.
Can I get a resolution to read from these appointments, please? Councillor Craddock, second by Councillor Zant. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and then I just have one more, Municipal Insurance Association of BC. So typically this is where the real work comes in, is at UBCM when you get to go and be a voting member. And so at this point, we have Councillor Craddock and Councillor Antonelli as village representatives to MIABC.
Good to carry on.
And if I could, Councillor Craddock, I think, has been appointed as the voting member
Mhm.
in that instance. And there's one voting and one non-voting. Councillor Antonelli is the non-voting.
Councillor Antonelli, are you good to carry on as currently?
Yeah, actually, all I had to do was email them and then they allowed me to vote. So maybe it was just because Ted wasn't there, but yeah, I'm fine to carry on.
Okay,
Thank you.
so
Moved as presented.
moved that appointment by Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Noble. Any opposed? Motion carries.
The other thing we do have, although we don't officially, I don't think we've actually appointed in the past, but just the liaison positions, which is the Pemberton Valley Diking District, Pemberton Valley Trails Association, the SLRD Agricultural Advisory Committee, and Tourism Pemberton. So at this point, for the PVDD, we have Councillor Craddock, who has assumed that role. For PVTA, Councillor Noble, and SLRD AAC was Councillor Noble, and Tourism Pemberton was Councillor Antonelli, with Councillor Zant being the alternate. So I think it makes sense to appoint someone. It's not really an appointment, but just acknowledging that they will be the liaison.
Okay.
If everyone's so happy with those positions.
Anybody want to carry on, or does anybody want to make any changes? Go ahead, Councillor Antonelli.
I would like to pass the torch on Tourism Pemberton, and I am interested in the Agricultural Advisory Committee.
Oh, we've got a negotiation at hand. Councillor Noble, is there any interest in switching it up, or how do you feel about it?
I'm very interested in the agricultural committee, but I never get any updates. I never hear about meetings, so it's kind of a moot point.
So would you be amenable to switching from the AAC to Tourism Pemberton with Councillor Antonelli?
Ooh,
Or just maybe not representing or passing the
Or
torch.
just
on the
passing the torch
AAC.
of the AAC on if Councillor Antonelli or anybody else is willing to be.
yeah, I'll pass the torch. I hope she's got a connection.
We should, I mean, is there a reconnection with these groups after we do the yearly appointments, just to remind them
Yep,
so
we
that we're
do.
on the email list and all that sort of, okay. So this will be hopefully a refresher and get back actively with the AAC. Tourism Pemberton, how would you guys like to manage that one? I think that's the last one, right?
Yeah.
PVTA, Councillor Noble, you want to stick with that?
Yes.
Okay, and PVD, yeah. PV. Tourism Pemberton, anyone? Who would like to take those meetings?
My plate's full. I've got enough appointments as it is.
Fair enough.
If Tourism Pemberton wants to
We
send
do,
Go ahead, Councillor Antonelli.
we do have a staff person that attends, so just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to have representation from council too. That's up to you guys. So,
What are the meeting nights for those?
First Wednesday, month, Don? First Wednesday evening of the month,
Yeah, put me down for it.
okay? Councillor Antonelli, will leave you as the alternate on that? Okay,
Yes,
okay, so can I get a motion? And just to confirm those appointments, liaison, Councillor Zant, seconded by Councillor Antonelli. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, and that's everything.
That's everything on that report. Thanks for that. Okay, we're on to Community Enhancement Fund contributions, Leeward Christmas Bureau and the Permanent Christmas Hamper Program.
I'll take this one too. I'll just be very quick. This time of the year, we're sort of ramping down. We do still have some funds left in our Community Enhancement Fund. And we have typically received requests nearing into December for contributions to both the Lowell Christmas Bureau and the Pemberton Food Bank Christmas Hamper Program. So what we have, this does actually meet with our policy and the criteria in the community enhancement policy program. And so we do have $1,000 left over in this fund. One of the recommendations is we could do as we've done in the past, to make a contribution of $250 to each of the organizations, or and which would leave $500 remainder. Or if council would be agreeable, you could split the pot and provide $500 to each, which would leave the pot empty. But we are nearing the end of the year, so there's two options for consideration.
There's no requests that we normally get for Christmas right at the end of the year here that we're aware of.
Other than these two, typically there aren't any.
Okay, thoughts? And Suzanne, go ahead.
I'm happy to move the recommendation from staff for $250 each.
Okay. There's a seconder. Councilor Noble, discussion. Councilor Craddock.
Not so much on the motion, but something I'd like to discuss when it comes budget time is looking at the roundabout sign administration that we pay every year.
About the what, sorry?
The roundabout sign administration that we pay every year. We seem to be paying ourselves, and I bring it up every year, so I'd like to rediscuss it again this year. But in the meantime, I'll support the motion on the floor.
Okay, I'll call the question. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we're on to 12C. Finance, about the TD Bank borrowing resolution. Is Jeanette joining?
No,
So you're
I'll take
taking
that
it?
one too.
Go ahead.
I don't believe she's on there, is she? No, okay. So what we are trying to apply for TD visas, our corporate credit cards. We had previously applied and actually have corporate Visa cards through Scotiabank, but having had Scotiabank leave and having now with Blue Shore, there's an automatic withdrawal of the payments of Scotiabank to an account that we don't have to keep active anymore. So it's causing problems by having to transfer funds. And so what we'd like to do is cancel the Scotiabank cards, apply to the bank we do our banking with for the visas, and they require us to give a borrowing resolution. So what we are asking is to get approval for 6 TD Visa cards. They have varying degrees of authorization, depending on spending limits. Obviously, the larger ones for myself and the manager of finance, those are going to be more for overall organizational purposes. Not every staff has it. So if there's a large purchase that's coming from the States, or if other members of the staff need to purchase something, they'll use those. Whereas the ones for department heads are mostly just for their organization, not for administration overall. So the total would be up to $50,000 spread amongst 6 cards. And so the recommendation is that council of the Village of Pemberton authorizes staff to make application for TD Visa credit cards with a borrowing limit of $50,000, and that council of the Village of Pemberton approve a borrowing resolution for securing the business credit cards.
Pardon me, any questions? Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you have it in place, but I don't recall seeing it. What are the parameters around using these kind of dollars? That's, I mean, $5,000 I can see, but when you get to 10 and 20,000, that's a big chunk of money.
I don't think we've ever maxed out any of those. They're for sort of emergency type purchases if they're larger. We have a credit card policy that everyone must sign who is taking on this, which outlines what are purchases that can be made. Obviously, there's no personal purchases whatsoever using a corporate credit card, ensuring that there's adequate purchase orders and approvals prior to the spend. So it's really no different than if someone was to buy something from a company and have an invoice sent. It's for those extenuating circumstances, say you're going across the border and you're getting exchange where you're not able to courier a check and those types of things. We prefer to use this as a last resort. with the exception of, say, our Adobe Professional comes out on a monthly basis. Zoom payments come out on a monthly basis, and that would be on the larger card. It would be on the one for the CAO, because they are regular fees that come out every month automatically charged. So yeah, in order to get that, you need to sign the policy and make sure that you're spending appropriately.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll move the motion.
Moved by Counselor Zant, as presented, seconded by Counselor Noble. Any discussion? Motion carries. Okay, we're on to bylaws. Is Lindsay going to join us? Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us, Lindsay. We're just starting 13A, which is bylaw for first, second reading. It's the Village of Permanent Parks and Public Spaces Use Bylaw 797, 2016, amendment bylaw 950. And you've got the floor.
Can you freeze?
Okay,
Oh, no, there you are.
Lindsay, we're gonna, oh, no, I guess you can. Sorry, I'm gonna have us in here.
What's happening here?
So
I don't think we can hear. I don't think,
Might be trying to get on with her phone.
maybe.
It's cold up there.
Okay. Can you
There
hear
we
me?
go.
All
Sorry,
good?
I was going well on the computer and then anyway. Right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking the time and bearing with me to hear my report. The purpose of this report is to present an amendment to the Parks and Public Spaces Use Bylaw for Council's consideration. In recent years, there has been an increase in household waste being deposited into public garbage receptacles within the village. In its current form, the bylaw references rather simply waste generated outside of public space, but does not specifically refer to household waste. For clarity, staff feel that household garbage specifically be addressed given this recent issue or increase. After some research and comparison with similar bylaws in other municipalities regarding this specific issue, staff propose an additional clause being incorporated under section 7 as follows. So 7.5, no person shall dispose of household waste in public waste receptacles. It's also recommended to provide further clarity within that bylaw that the definition of park be added as noted in section 2 definitions. There are no communications or legal obligations associated with this amendment. So the recommendation of the report is that Parks and Public Spaces Use Bylaw number 797 from 2016, amendment Household Waste Bylaw number 915, 2021 receive first, second and third readings.
Much. Any questions?
One question I have, and it's in regards to the recycling, that recycling items that can be recycled that we see outside of the garbage cans on a regular basis. Is there anywhere in our bylaw that, or maybe this is a budget question, can we look at bringing recycling bins to people beside our garbage bins? Because I understand, and I've seen it myself, where people put waste in the bins, but then they're leaving the recycling items outside the bins.
So we did just get a number of bins that are new to us, and they are the recycling and the other. Also, staff does go through and separate the garbage.
Okay.
And We have one member of Public Works, and her passion is making sure that the majority of stuff that goes to the landfill should be going to the landfill. Obviously, anything that's able to come out, she spends quite a bit of time on. She actually would like to expand that program. So in the next year or so, we may be bringing some additional information forward.
Excellent. All right, that's the only question I had. Thank you.
Any other questions? Somebody like to move for a second and third reading of the amendment? Councillor Craddock, second by Councillor Zant. Any further discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
We're on to 13.2 Village Permanent Bylaw 912 Amendment, Bylaw 916/2021. Ms. Kennedy.
Yes, that's me. I'll take off my glasses. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking the time to hear this report. The purpose of the report is to present for Council's consideration an amendment to Building Bylaw number 912, which was adopted at Special Council Meeting 1548 held on October 21st. Shortly after adoption of the bylaw, staff noticed that it was adopted without an important change to the definition of building official. The change came about after staff received legal advice regarding the authority of the building official to enter property for the purpose of administering and enforcing the building bylaw. As such, staff are recommending that the definition be changed by an amendment to the new building bylaw. The proposed definition would allow the chief administrative officer to designate the building official from persons who are qualified as either a member of the Architectural Institute of BC or the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists, or a member of the Building Officials Association of BC with the qualifications described in Section 11 of the Building Act. The definition would ensure that the building official carries the qualifications that are set out in the Building Act. There are no legal or communications obligations associated with this change, and the amendment bylaw has been reviewed and approved by Scott McCrae, Manager Development Services. The recommendation of the report is that the building bylaw amendment bylaw number 916/2021 receive first, second, and third readings. And I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? Seeing none, somebody like to move for second, third reading of the amendment? Councillor Zant, second by Councillor Noble. Any discussion? Any opposed? Motion carries. And we're on to 14. Here's report. Couple of meetings to report on. Maybe I'll just give a couple of the highlights from the SLRD meetings last week, Wednesday, Thursday. So lots of delegations and sort of larger topic discussions. We had our regular update from BC Hydro just on the Bridge River hydro system. Some of the work that's being projected for this year is that, I wouldn't say downscale, but it's more maintenance based. So they're not going to see quite the level of activity up there that we normally do. Talking about 35 workers on average working up in the area, mostly housed in the Seton area. So yeah, it was just a quick update there. Then we had a couple of delegations, one from the Metro Van Regional District. And this was an RGS presentation. This is on their 50-year plan. And as part of their RGS process within this, they have to consult with any regional district that borders them. So there we were in our last meeting. It was an interesting presentation to see some of their planning exercises and projections, lots of growth projections, how to manage the growth, where to focus that growth, and how does it happen with climate concerns, how does affordable housing fit into that growth and those plans. Those are the biggest sort of overriding themes was around affordability and climate. There's also lots of discussion about, having the housing next to transit hubs, trying to promote active transportation and accessibility on foot and bike and that sort of thing. But there's also a lot of discussion around what we call the 15-minute neighborhoods and how they continue to grow. As they focus this growth, how does the Metro Van look at building complete mini neighborhoods? So it's within 15 minutes, you have all your basic services. Obviously not all your services, but if you can walk or ride for instance, to get your groceries, your beverages, your, basic daily services. How do they focus their growth and make sure that it's built that way as opposed to just housing popping up along transit corridors? So there's lots of good questions there that led into, also from our side, from the regional district side, led into questions around transit. And then timely following that presentation was TransLink with their 2050 transportation plan and engagement process. So similar, they talked about where they see the projections going, where they see the needs going at this point, how they plan on managing it. Talked a lot about, again, active transportation, not just transit. How do we, find other ways to move people around? So it's not all just about buses or the likes, and there's a lot of other ways to plan and develop so that people can move. How to make transit more attractive so that it's not the third option, it's the first option, rather than the first option being, hey, I want the privacy of my car. So there was a lot of interesting conversation too around that tug of war. Well, we talked about traffic snares, and we talked about, parking in vehicles and some, on a smaller scale, how we deal with that here, and providing opportunities to make sure that cars move more freely, that traffic moves more smoothly, but trying to put more of our focus and efforts, their focus and efforts into making transit and other forms of transportation more attractive. So again, if you build awesome parking lots everywhere, 8-lane highways, so there's never any traffic, everybody's going to stay in their cars, continue emitting GHGs, and not even consider transit. That doesn't mean you let traffic snarl down, so that gets people off of it. So there's a tug of war, that there's a balance, and it was interesting within their plan to see how they manage that balance. And then looking ahead to electrification and of fleets and how they're going to move forward in the next 30 years. And of course, there was discussion about our transit system that we've been trying to implement for a few years now, and how they would work with us, but I'll get to that again. Other topics, there was a workshop at the Committee of the Whole around PILT allocations, payment in lieu of taxes, that come from BC Hydro. When I first started sitting on the board, we went through a very intensive process to redistribute the PILT allocations, so however many years ago that was. And that was to make sure that the payment in lieu of taxes from BC Hydro were more going to the areas that are impacted by BC Hydro's projects. So ultimately, areas A and B and areas D in the regional district, so the Bridge River area, and there are hydroelectric dams and lights in area D as well. So there's discussion around that. The format that was developed a few years ago that I just mentioned was, for the most part, kept. Area C does not receive PILT funds. There are no PILT funds for transmission lines, only for generation stations and that sort of thing. So there was discussion about how PILT funds can be used in the other areas, and a bit of a workshop on that. We also had a presentation from our regional business liaison. I wonder how much as you mentioned earlier, there hasn't been a meeting for some time, but the regional business liaison is something that came up through NDIT. So NDIT funded this position for a year's term. And NDIT serves the North. We don't qualify under NDIT, and so a big part of the focus of this regional business liaison is in the northern part of the region. However, it does cover the whole region. And this person, she's working basically with businesses throughout the region to support them and give them direction to find loans, services, grants, whatever other business services, so that she can help support for small business. There have been, I think she said she's worked with 23 businesses and 47 not-for-profits. So it's not-for-profits, it's municipal organizations, it's all the above. And a bit of a conduit for the work you've done with the Economic Development Group and our chambers. I know she's been in touch with the Pemberton Chamber. And I'm not sure with Tourism Pemberton or not, but that would probably be a good connection to make as well. But yeah, just out there to support local businesses. So it's a good program. We got a bit of an update from her. A couple really quick notes. Britannia Beach Development, their sales center received a temporary use permit to get set up. Up in the north, $38,000 in gas tax. We're committed to Minto Communications, and this is to continue trying to connect some of the really remote areas of Area A to broadband connectivity. I said would be the highlights for the SLRD. A couple other meetings. The CAO and I met with Mr. Dijkstra. He's the head RCMP for our corridor. He, if you recall, was zoomed into our meeting a number of months ago when he just started the role. He's 6 months in now, so he's got his feet set. And I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought it was really productive. He is very open-minded. I think he's progressive in his thinking. It was really nice to hear how he recognizes Pemberton's uniqueness in terms of, well, in terms of its uniqueness, but in terms of policing. It's not the same as Whistler, how there's sensitivities that need to be taught to new members as they come here, some of the younger members with less experience. He has been working very hard on service levels and how we get served by the RCMP. And the good news is we're going with that work. We're now going from 4 constables and a corporal on duty or based here in Pemberton to 5 corporals and a constable. So we increased it by 1 member, which quite honestly we should have had previously. That member got sucked into Whistler a lot, we'll say. But with Mr. Dijkstra's leadership, they have rearranged out. We have the RCMP members that are committed to our community. So we now have 5 and 1. They're working on more housing still. Most of them live here in the community. He's really keen on getting them acclimatized to this area. We talked about, and he's very committed to seeing the constables do more foot patrols, really build their presence in a gentler way than perhaps we might have seen recently. They're going to work on the schedule. They were working on a bit of an urban schedule where it's 4 on, 4 off. He's looking at with Mr. Langtree how to work that out so that, because we don't need coverage deep into the night necessarily. So how can they work the schedule so that we have even more coverage? So he's really committed to the service levels, which was great to hear. We're going to have regular meetings, the CEO himself and myself, and he would like to come, and we would like him to come to meet with all of you here at council on a quarterly basis, I think is what we discussed. Now that he's got his feet set, and I'm sure you guys would have questions to follow up. So really keen on working with us. And we spoke about, I brought up the tensions we've experienced over the last month, a couple of years with, perhaps longer, with some of our teenagers and RCMP, and how that relationship isn't perhaps where we would like it to be. And there's been clashes and tension. So he's very keen. I mentioned to him, as I mentioned to you guys, about my visit to the high school at the end of the year, where there was interest in setting up a forum between teenagers and RCMP and trying to open a dialogue in a positive way to change the course of that relationship. And he is super keen on that. He's working with Corporal Langtree on that idea, and will be getting back to us. So I look forward to working with them on that. Just a couple more quick ones. I had a meeting, I followed up and found a new representative for us for CN Rail. As you recall, I've been working a little bit with this local group who, once again, we're working to try to get safe passage over the Little Wet River near the CN Bridge. And so I tracked down the new Francois. I know it's regional manager of something. I had never met with him before. He's fairly new to the role. He admitted to being able to put place Pemberton on a map and not having much more familiarity with our community. I explained the historical need to get over the river safely, the dangers of walking along the train tracks there, and the fact that that danger is exponentially growing with development and recreation happening on the other side of Pemberton Farm Road. So I was very clear, as I've been in the past, that I feel that this is their problem as much, if not more, than any of ours. It's not even in the village of Pemberton's jurisdiction, yet we're working on it because it's a safety issue for our residents, knowing that they're there regularly. But this is a danger on their track and they need to support us to make this better. When we discussed the opportunity to attach on to the CN Bridge, once again, similar to conversations in the past, there was a real reluctance to go that way, mostly because of a fear to set precedent. You know, use an example, he's like, well, I do that for you, Mike, and then, you know, the mayor of Edmonton calls me and his bridge is X amount of meters long, but we've set a precedent for, and I said, I know there's a million communities like us in where CN has activities and we all want something. But you cannot deny this issue. You cannot deny the risk. If you won't allow twinning, how will you, onto your bridge, how will you support us? And so he was, he again was somewhat open to exploring a separate bridge, what that would look like. So I'm bringing this information back to that local group. They were in the process of, and they will come back to us for support of their work at some point when they put it together. They wanted to put some high-end costs and proposals together for twinning onto the bridge as well as a standalone bridge. I'll give them this information so that it's appropriate. Austin, I think is his name. The CN rep said he would do a little more historical digging, speak to Francois, which was positive because Francois has always been a big supporter of this. And we'll go from there. VCH meetings, I don't think I need to go much into that. And maybe let me just actually a couple upcoming things. Back on the regional transit, a couple things are happening. So TransLink, so if you recall out of our meeting with the ministers a few months ago during UBCM with regional transit, there was a renewed interest in doing a demand study, which is great, but as I expressed my frustration on our call, that we don't need to understand why, we need to understand how we can build regional transit. We know the why, and the demand study might inform it a bit, but it feels like we should be doing more work on the how. So since then, a couple things are happening. TransLink and BC Transit have set up a forum with us to discuss what transit could look like moving forward, and to talk about that demand study, how that demand study should be conducted. I've mentioned before, and I will continue to fight the fight that, you know, my concern is that through a demand study, they're going to identify that there's a much higher need in the southern end of the region corridor, and therefore we should start from Vancouver to Squamish and into Whistler, and Pemberton will be left in the dust because we already have our own system, which we fund. As I will remind them in all of these meetings I'm telling you about, and we'll make sure TransLink hears the message and everybody else, the ministers as well, is that this is a regional commission, a regional system that we're trying to set up. It's buses from Mount Currie to Vancouver. It's a comprehensive system. It's not a piecemeal where we break it down. Well, we have more demand in the south and we build up that way. I'll fight that fight right to the end to make sure we don't get left out, but that's going to be a big part of my conversation or my contribution. So there's the TransLink and BC Transit Forum, we'll call it. And we also have another ministers meeting on this. So that's on November 10th, I think. And then November 18th or 23rd, something like that is, we have another meeting, the committee with ministers again. So we'll see where we can get on the how of all this. And in anticipation of both those meetings, there will be a working meeting for the committee. I think it's next week to prepare for the other two. Next Friday to prepare for the other two. Two more last notes. First of all, I want to acknowledge the work of our fire department and crew to put together the fireworks and all the work they did for us on Halloween. I've heard a number of people say best fireworks yet. It was a really great show, and I think the community really could use and enjoyed a little bit of distraction, and I think it was really positive. So I just want to thank everybody involved for that. And my last note is coming up is Remembrance Day. I, pardon me, very, very much enjoy taking part in Remembrance Day ceremonies. I think it's a great event everywhere, but I think it's a great event in Pemberton. I love to see the range of folks and ages that come out and support and are there and present. Unfortunately, I will be in transit from Montreal that day. Councillor Noble, you are the acting mayor while I'm away. Are you available and willing to place the wreath during the Remembrance Day ceremonies on my behalf, on our behalf?
Checking your calendar. I think that was a yes.
I think so, yeah. You good for that? Okay, I've responded to the Legion, but I will connect you on the email chain and they'll just get you set up on that. Thanks for covering me for that. And that's all I got for the mayor's report. Any questions? Any council reports? That's good, go ahead.
I would just like to commend the community members who came out to Halloween. I've never had such a good time. I think in the Glen, it becomes the block party of the year. I just would encourage more people that don't have access to that many people coming home to come down and join us. I literally look down the street I live on and it's packed with people and they're all visiting and chatting, and especially after COVID, it was so nice to see so many people out.
Nice.
And being an average age of 36 in the community, you can certainly see that by the new young people coming out. And I just had a great time, and I actually set a new record for the amount of children coming by at 385. So it was one of those nights of, it's my favorite time of the year because you do something for the kids. And it was just so great to see in the fire department and everybody that looked after that neighborhood you there and make sure the traffic was limited or none at all. And then people, 7:45, I can tell you 7:45, I'm done because everybody's heading over to watch the fireworks. And again, like you said, Mayor, it was a wonderful evening and what a great day as far as weather too. So it was really fun this year. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a great community event and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's pretty impressive what people do put together in the Glen there. Well, I know about that. Any other council reports? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to report that I've got a library board meeting this coming Thursday. Since I've been walking my kids to school more often, I have noticed a larger RCMP presence in the school zone, which I'm really happy to see. And even though they're not parked there, they're at least doing car patrols, which has slowed a lot of people down. So I'm really happy to see that. I haven't seen near as many speeders. And also a big thanks to staff and fire department for the fireworks display as well. I took my kids out to the Glen and promptly lost one of them. So
Did you get it back?
eventually I did find him. He went left, I went right. So, but it was a lot of fun. And yeah, it's like Councilor Craddock said, the Glen is the block party of Pemberton. It's the feeling down there is just absolutely amazing. Everybody's out to have some fun. And I think the best part is how much the adults get into it. I've never seen so many adults put so much work into their costumes, let alone their kids' costumes. It's a hoot. I just love it. I love Halloween in Pemberton. It's just great. So, anyways, that's all I had to say. Big thanks to staff and fire department and the RCMP.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else? You just made me think an add-on to what I was talking about with RCMP. My son's told me, who's 17, told me that he was at the skate park. I think it was the day or two after that good windstorm we had last week. And I think it was Corporal Linetree that pulled up. Did I tell you, did we talk about? Pulled up with a broom and a shovel to the skate park. And the kids are like, what are you doing? And he's like, well, a windstorm. I noticed it was pretty dirty in here, so I thought I'd come give you guys a hand cleaning up.
Nice.
And the kids were responding, like just that little gesture alone. So if you didn't talk to him, I think it was him. Like, it's got to be him. Right away, that gesture went a long way. It was brought up to me unprompted, and I thought it was very cool.
Excellent.
Okay, correspondence. I don't think I've ever seen an agenda with no correspondence on it before. Did we lose them?
Nobody checked the mail.
Okay, decision on late business. Late business, we have none. Notice of motion. Question period. I don't have the usual note for those that are on Zoom or participating on Zoom, but try to recap in my head. Just remember that any questions should be in accordance with the agenda discussed. That comments this is a live feed and will be recorded, so any comments or questions will form part of the public record. Did I miss something on that?
That was great.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
So questions from the public? Any questions? You got anybody attending?
We have only staff attending and they're not asking any questions.
Excellent. Tom, nothing for us? All right, thanks for joining us. Good to see you guys out. So I will look for a motion to go back in camera, please. Councilor Craddock, seconded by Councilor Zant. Opposed. Take 2 minutes to clear the Zoom and we'll go back in camera. So I'll bring back to order the regular council meeting for November 2nd. And we're on item 22, which is rise of the report. Two as report or from in camera from October 19th, where that staff be directed to research remuneration for council members and bring forward a report for discussion during budget deliberations in 2022. And that council approved the use of village's portion of 1929 Stonecutter Place for staging and potential temporary transfer station by the SLRD, and that the SLRD be fully responsible for undertaking any remediation and or reclamation of the site at the end of the term, and that no rental fees be charged. Do I need another motion on that?
No, I think you're just rising for it. Yeah.
Okay, and if there's nothing else, I'll look for a motion to adjourn, please. Councilor Zan, seconded by Councilor Antonelli. Any opposed? We're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great night.